Good evening. Let's try finish reading. I was out shopping, sell a bit empty bottle and buy some cheap meats. Then I made some hot food. I'm uploading the video. I need to clean my glasses. I forgot to do that. And I need a shower and a shaving very bad. So I think I will finish reading, then charge the camcorder, then take a bath, take a hot shower and a shaving, then upload later. The memory card is big, it's 128 gigabyte, so there's a lot of space left on the memory card. So I have to click like 50 times every video I need to upload. It's 50 click with my mouse. So this is part 7 or 8, so that's 400 clicks. I did not like to do that now, because I just eat my food. I like to read the rest of the history of Israel, but I have to read it again. I have to read it again later in a few weeks, because that's too many information. So now I just need the shower and the shaving. So I have to look my cell phone. And I will read in the Torah, the Moses book. I will read later. Look my cell phone, my table lamp off.
The opening ceremony of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, visited by Arthur Balfour, the 1st of April 1925 from 1928, the democratically elected Va'ad Leumi, Jewish National Council or JNC, became the main administrative institution of the Palestine Jewish community, Yishuv, and included non-Zionist Jews. As the Yishuv grew, the JNC adopted more government-type functions, such as education, healthcare, and security. With British permission, the Va'ad Leumi raised its own taxes, 217, and ran independent services for the Jewish population. 218. In 1929, tensions grew over the Kotel, Wailing Wall, the holiest spot in the world for modern Judaism, which was seen a narrow alleyway where the British banned Jews from using chairs or curtains. Many of the worshippers were elderly and needed seats. They also wanted to separate women from men. The Mufti of Jerusalem said it was Muslim proper who deliberately had cattle driven through the alley. He alleged that the Jews were seeking control of the Temple Mount. This provided the spark for the August 1929 Palestine riots. The main victims were the non-Zionist, ancient Jewish community at Hebron, who were massacred. The riots led to right-wing Zionists establishing their own militia in 1931, the Irgun Tzvei Leumi, National Military Organization, known in Hebrew by its acronym ETZL, which was committed to a more aggressive policy towards the Arab population. 219. During the interwar period, the perception grew that there was an irreconcilable tension between the two mandatory functions of providing for a Jewish homeland in Palestine and the goal of preparing the country for self-determination. 220. The British rejected the principle of majority rule or any other measure that would give the Arab population, who formed the majority of the population, control over Palestinian territory. 221. Increase in Jewish immigration. Between 1929 and 1938, 250,000 Jews arrived in Palestine, Fifth Aliyah. 222. In 1933, the Jewish Agency and the Nazis negotiated the Ha'avara Agreement, transfer agreement, under which 50,000 German Jews would be transferred to Palestine. The Jews' possessions were confiscated, and in return the Nazis allowed the Ha'avara organization to purchase £14 million worth of German goods for export to Palestine and use it to compensate the immigrants. Although many Jews wanted to leave Nazi Germany, the Nazis prevented Jews from taking any money and restricted them to 2 suitcases so few could pay the British entry tax, and many were afraid to leave. The agreement was controversial, and the Labour Zionist Saladeh, who negotiated the agreement, Haim Arlosoroff, was assassinated in Tel Aviv in 1933. The assassination was used by the British to create a tension between the Zionist left and the Zionist right. Arlosoroff had been the boyfriend of Magda Ritschl some years before she married Joseph Goebbels. 223. There has been speculation that he was assassinated by the Nazis to hide the connection, but there is no evidence for it. 224. Between 1933 and 1936, 174,000 arrived despite the large sums the British demanded for immigration permits. Jews had to prove they had £1,000 for families with capital, equivalent to £72,286 in 2021, £500 if they had a profession, and £250 if they were skilled labourers. 225. Arab Revolt and the White Paper. Jewish settlement police members watching the settlement Nesher during 1936-1939 Arab Revolt. Jewish immigration and Nazi propaganda contributed to the large-scale 1936-1939 Arab Revolt in Palestine, a largely nationalist uprising directed at ending British rule. The head of the Jewish Agency, Ben-Gurion, responded to the Arab Revolt with a policy of Havelaga, self-restraint, and a refusal to be provoked by Arab artics in order to prevent polarization. The Etzel group broke off from the Haganah in opposition to this policy. 226. The British responded to the revolt with the Peel Commission, 1936-37, a public inquiry that recommended an exclusively Jewish territory be created in the Galilee and Western Coast, including the population transfer of 225,000 Arabs, the rest becoming an exclusively Arab area. The two main Jewish leaders, Chaim Weizmann and David Ben-Gurion, had convinced the Zionist Congress to approve equivocally the Peel recommendations as a basis for more negotiation. 227, 228, 229. The plan was rejected outright by the Palestinian Arab leadership, and they renewed the revolt, which caused the British to appease the Arabs, and to abandon the plan as unworkable. 230, 231. Testifying before the Peel Commission, Weizmann said there are in Europe 6 million people, for whom the world is divided into places where they cannot live and places where they cannot enter. 232. In 1938, the US called an international conference to address the question of the vast numbers of Jews trying to escape Europe. Britain made its attendance contingent on Palestine being kept out of the discussion. 233. No Jewish representatives were invited. The Nazis proposed their own solution. that the Jews of Europe be shipped to Madagascar, the Madagascar Plan. The agreement proved fruitless, and the Jews were stuck in Europe. 234, 235, with millions of Jews trying to leave Europe and every country in the world closed to Jewish migration, the British decided to close Palestine. The White Paper of 1939 recommended that an independent Palestine, governed jointly by Arabs and Jews, be established within 10 years. The White Paper agreed to allow 75,000 Jewish immigrants into Palestine over the period 1940-44, after which migration would require Arab approval. Both the Arab and Jewish leadership rejected the White Paper. In March 1940, the British High Commissioner for Palestine issued an edict banning Jews from purchasing land in 95% of Palestine. Jews now resorted to illegal immigration, Aliyah Bet or Harapala, often organized by the Mossad Aliyah Bet and the Irgun. With no outside help and no countries ready to admit them, very few Jews managed to escape Europe between 1939 and 1945. Those caught by the British were mostly imprisoned in Mauritius. 236, 237, World War II and the Holocaust. During the Second World War, the Jewish Agency worked to establish a Jewish army that would fight alongside the British forces. Churchill supported the plan, but British military and government opposition led to its rejection. The British demanded that the number of Jewish recruits match the number of Arab recruits. 238. Jewish Brigade headquarters under the Union flag and Jewish flag. In June 1940, Italy declared war on the British Commonwealth and sided with Germany. Within a month, Italian planes bombed Tel Aviv and Haifa, inflicting multiple casualties. 239. In May 1941, the Palmach was established to defend the Yishuv against the planned Axis invasion through North Africa. The British refusal to provide arms to the Jews, even when Rommel's forces were advancing through Egypt in June 1942, intent on occupying Palestine, and the 1939 White Paper led to the emergence of a Zionist leadership in Palestine that believed conflict with Britain was inevitable. 240. Despite this, the Jewish Agency called on Palestine's Jewish youth to volunteer for the British Army, both men and women. 30,000 Palestinian Jews and 12,000 Palestinian Arabs enlisted in the British Armed Forces during the war. 241, 242. In June 1944, the British agreed to create a Jewish brigade that would fight in Italy. Approximately 1.5 million Jews around the world served in every branch of the Allied armies, mainly in the Soviet and US armies. 200,000 Jews died serving in the Soviet army alone. 243. A small group, about 200 activists, dedicated to resisting the British administration in Palestine, broke away from the Etzel, which advocated support for Britain during the war, and formed the Lehi Stern Gang, led by Avraham Stern. 244. In 1942, the USSR released the revisionist Zionist leader Menachem Begin from the Gulag, and he went to Palestine, taking command of the Etzel organization with a policy of increased conflict against the British. 245. At about the same time, Yitzhak Shamir escaped from the camp in Eritrea where the British were holding Lehi activists without trial, taking command of the Lehi Stern Gang. 246. Jews in the Middle East were also affected by the war. Most of North Africa came under Nazi control and many Jews were used as slaves. 247. The 1941 pro-Axis coup in Iraq was accompanied by massacres of Jews. The Jewish Agency put together plans for a last stand in the event of Rommel invading Palestine. The Nazis planned to exterminate Palestine's Jews. 248. Between 1939 and 1945, the Nazis, aided by local forces, led systematic efforts to kill every person of Jewish extraction in Europe, the Holocaust, causing the deaths of approximately 6 million Jews. A quarter of those killed were children. The Polish and German Jewish communities, which played an important role in defining the pre-1945 Jewish world, mostly ceased to exist. In the United States and Palestine,